Ready?
What's up, everyone? It's Friday. It's August 4th. I have a very special guest with me for today's show. It is Ben Heisler. Made sure that I asked before I had you on so I didn't butcher it. He's host of Betty and the Bets. Great name. Producer Ryan and I were just talking about this on KC Sports Network. Benny, how's it going?
What's up, Stephie? I'm so thrilled to finally have an opportunity to be on, talk some football, talk some ball. This is going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. The season is approaching faster than I expected. Being in Michigan, I'm trying to get as much sunshine as possible. I find myself taking as many walks before it starts snowing again, which will happen, but it means that football is here. But we got to talk about your Chiefs. 11.5, right? I think that's what the win total is sitting at here. I don't even think there's an argument for them not to go over this.
No, I'm right there with you. It's 11.5. It's pretty juiced to the over.
Yeah.
I should mention that, like, even though I am in Kansas City, and I suppose that I've passed the love of the Chiefs to my kids because, you know, I love them and I don't want them to become a Bears fan like myself. I want them to be happy. I don't want them to be miserable and suffer the way that I have for, 30 something years.
That's a good dad. That's a parenting advice 101 yes. There. Yeah. That's
you can't go on this show. You can't go on the Stephie Smalls show and not bring #dad to the
exactly.
So I'm fully prepared. I'm with you though. Like, it feels like you're walking into a trap, right? It's 11.5. It's highly juiced to the over. You're trying to think to yourself, well, what can happen in this scenario? So I was trying to go through it. The Chiefs are going to be favored, and they are favored in every single game this year. The last time they failed to get to the level above 11.5 was the Alex Smith season back in 2017. And I'm thinking about that favorite stat for a second, Stephie, and tell me if you think this is kind of nuts. Yeah. So they haven't been a good covering team the last couple of years.
They haven't. I was just about to say that to you.
But as a favorite since 2018, since Mahomes took over, 68-16 straight up as a favorite. They've won 81% of their games as a favorite. And last year, they were almost unstoppable in winning outright as a favorite. So that's what the win total bet is about. They get the job done. Whether or not they cover the full spread is another story. But unless there's a major injury, I have a very difficult time, even in a tough schedule, trying to find that avenue of where they don't get to that number, even though it feels like a very public play.
Yeah, and the schedule can only be so tough for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I mean, they have this team. Even last year, people thought that they were going to be able to start counting them out a little bit. They just get the job done. You look at Patrick Mahomes; he's 27-3. That's his record against the AFC West. That's wild right there. That is a crazy stat. I was shocked when I saw that today when I was looking. Not shocked because it is Patrick, but. Talk to me about how you see this division playing out, because I think there's a team that I'm a little bit lower on than everyone else is kind of high on. So I want to get your opinion before I start mouthing off a little.
Okay, I know that there's all sorts of universal love for Jimmy Garoppolo. No, I'm just kidding though. They're going to be a team this year.
100%.
They're going to be rough. I'm not sure if I can hear any sort of argument that Las Vegas is going to come on and steal the show. The Chargers are interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kate Majuk, who's a good friend in the industry and an awesome fantasy sports betting writer, done a lot, especially in moving the advancement of women's sports in sports media too. Super awesome human being. We were talking about the Chargers a handful of months back. And we're like, okay, Kellen Moore is there now. You're moving into a more modern offense. You're taking advantage of what Justin Herbert is able to do. But Brandon Staley's the head coach, and to which she described, it doesn't really matter if you have a super nice car. Mm-hmm. If the driver's a shitty driver, it doesn't really matter. There's still that bad taste at the top of the Chargers organization, to which the talent is there, but they never stay healthy. They still can't finish games. And as I'm trying to piece it together, they've had some success against the Chiefs in a handful of games over the last couple of years, but it's still not decisive in their favor. And I'm just not going to trust the head coach when it comes to Brandon Staley versus Andy Reid. The advantage still goes to Kansas City every time. So even if the Chargers get into the playoffs, I don't think they're taking out the Chiefs as well. Denver, whether or not you think Russell Wilson is cooked, I'm willing to give it one more year with a real
You're more patient than me. I will give you that. You're a good.
Yeah,
you got the whole package going now.
Yeah. Think about what we saw, Stephie, in Jacksonville, when all of a sudden you had a real adult in the building with Doug Peterson compared to Urban Meyer. Like, I'm willing to give them this chance this year, moving on from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton, right? Like, there is gravitas. There is a coach that understands how to actually put together a team. Defense still has issues, and I'm still not entirely sure what to make of what I've seen from Russ the last couple of years. Maybe he brings everything back out of him, but even with that, it's still not at the level of Kansas City. So I just don't know who takes them out in that division.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that this is their division for a bit. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Broncos. And I will say this, it's not that the Broncos can't get worse, right? Like, Russell can't play worse. None of this can get worse, really.
That's fair.
They had, their defense played very well last year. I think that defense, it's going to be hard to actually match that season for what they were able to do, being on the field as much as they were too. It's just going to be interesting with Sean there. I don't know if, is Russ really the type of quarterback that I see Sean being able to coach? I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. I actually really like Brandon Staley. Not that we root for people who lose their jobs, but that 16-1 number on him to be the first coach fired, I don't hate that, to be completely honest. But I think that probably will be what holds the Chargers back. If it is anything, it is going to be that. I want to ask you, while I have a little bit more time with you, what is going on with Kansas City's wide receiver room?
Yeah, it's we asked the same question last year, right? Like, yeah, you brought in Juju and that was going to be a nice addition, but there was still all sorts of question marks. Like, here's the thing. It's going to be Kelsey leading the way once again. Like, how many consecutive seasons with over 1,000 yards? I think right now his projection is like just over the 1,000 yard mark. So you're tempted once again to take the over, but he's 33 years old. So like, I'm still not sure if I feel like purely convinced to go with it, but there isn't any indication that says that he's slowing down anytime soon. Here's what I'll say about the Chiefs wide receiver room. Like, if your guy, Kadarius Toney, is healthy, there's a massive ceiling there, but it just hasn't happened yet. And so everything kind of leads me to at least some optimism on Sky Moore. So his number came out 575.5.
Okay.
I talked about it last week that this is somebody that is coming into the slot with Kansas City in his second year. Rookie wide receivers with Andy Reid usually tend to struggle. Even Tyreek Hill didn't have a great year. But the second year, they really start to figure it out. And the Chiefs led the NFL, even with like a bunch of scrubs, you would say, at wide receiver. They still led the NFL by almost 300 yards in yards receiving in the slot, by like 300 yards over Minnesota. And that's where Sky Moore is going to line up the bulk of the time. So, like, there's still some inconsistencies and you just don't know what to expect. But there's confidence now, and there's still an ability for him to be able to make plays in the middle of the field. Run Richie James, not sure what his role is necessarily going to be.
Oh, no, he might piss people off betting wise. I'll tell you, like, he was on the Giants. Apparently, we like to share players at this point, but he's the one that's going to piss people off because he is going to end up being good for a touchdown here and there, and he's going to take some yards away from some of these guys, and especially because they're kind of doing this. They might end up in this like wide receiver by committee, especially if Justin Ross, who I'm starting to be a little bit more intrigued in. I try to stay away from camp hype because it's very easy to do that. But there's a reason why, like, he was an elite prospect. He would have went in the first round if it wasn't for those injuries. In 2018, he led Clemson in receiving yards and he didn't start a single game. Like, that's crazy. So we know that the talent is there. He started over T. Higgins. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think that Andy Reid never shows his cards. So I don't know what to expect there. In fantasy too, I don't know that I'm totally in on anyone exactly. You look at their ADPs, I'd probably lean towards like a Sky Moore, but Justin Ross right now, he's not going to be as cheap as he was because Twitter has caught on to him. So he's not going to be as cheap as you probably could have got him, last week. But I think that, the Chiefs wide receiver room is going to end up being very fun. They might be a waiver wire team.
I think that's fair. Like, maybe Sky is going to move from, say, 8th round to 7th round. Maybe James is like a late round flyer. And remember, like, They still have McKinnon, who's going to catch some
Right.
passes too.
Right.
Pacheco wasn't used as a receiving back, but he has the ability to do it. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who has just made people that drafted him want to bang their heads against the wall numerous times. Like, he's still there, and they're going to have usage for him. And Mahomes is really good, especially with running backs that run that route like right out of the flat. He's so good. Like, think Damian Williams in the Super Bowl. Like, that was like the quintessential way that they like to use a lot of these backs. So you're going to have running backs like taking away some of these pass catching opportunities as well. So I think you're right. It's going to be a lot of committee. It's going to be a lot of game plan focused. And that's kind of how you have to play it with Kansas City this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that I'm completely out on Pacheco the way that everyone else is. I think he's someone that I'm still giving looks to because he's falling, especially in fantasy. But I can't let you get out of here without talking about your actual team. It may not be the team you're giving your children because you are a good dad. But where do you stand on this NFC North? And like, is the Bears winning this division a good look in your opinion?
It's reasonable, right? Like, you bring in Ndakwe, 1-year deal, which I think was super reasonable. It's crazy to think that he's one of like very few people that has had like 8 or more sacks over the past 5-6 years in the NFL. Like, it's Yannick Ndakwe and not a whole lot of other guys. It depends on like who's really holding the cards. Like, right now, I think you can find him as low as plus 430, plus 450 to win the division. I think that's a reasonable line to take him. Fields is going to take a step forward because he has a much improved offensive line. They went ahead, signed their first-round pick in Wright to be able to go ahead and just shore up the right side. They're more comfortable in the scheme. It's his second year now with Luke Getsy. And now you have DJ Moore. Like, now that they have real-ass wide receivers, they're and the line is improved. Like, the talk around Bears camp right now, Stephie, and this is so weird because for 35 years, I've been like ingrained to hear like, trust the defense. The Bears are going to just get off the bus running. They're not going to get off the bus running. Maybe Fields will run, but the offense is the star right now in Chicago. And the defense, you trust the coaching staff and Eberflus, who comes from a defensive background, to be able to coach them up a little bit.
Right.
And there's some playmakers there, and they made some decent signings in free agency. Like, I'd project them to be maybe like an 7-8 win team, which is noticeably better than last year. But like, is it out of question that Detroit kind of falls on their face and Minnesota regresses and Green Bay sucks without Aaron Rodgers? Of course. And then Chicago is able to take advantage. I think it's up for grabs, which I think allows the possibility that, maybe Fields steps up his game and the offense looks way improved and they actually go ahead and do something.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You probably won't like this. One of my favorite futures, which it's kind of a positive. It sounds like a negative, but it's not. But I do like that Justin Fields over 10.5 interceptions thrown. He's going to pass the ball more. It's great. That's going to be a good thing for him. We want him to develop as a passer. He threw 11 in 15 games last year, 10 in 12, I think, his rookie year. So I think 10.5, if he gets to 11, great. I think he's going over that number. But I think you're right in that the NFC North is, I think everyone's having a really hard time getting a touch on what exactly is going to happen there. So I think that number, there is value in it. But before I let you get out of here, if you were to guess how the division lays out, how does it work out?
I'll still say the Lions win the division. Minnesota is still that team that I just don't trust, even with all like the positive PR now coming out of quarterback for Kirk Cousins. Good for him. I think he could have used it, and he actually made the most of his appearance there. But I think they hang around. He'll still put up some solid numbers, but they have a lot of holes on defense. But the Lions, you saw the improvement. You saw the way that they continue to play for Campbell. I think it's either Detroit wins 10 games, takes home that division, goes 10-7, or it's just a complete disaster. Goff falls down and Amon-Ra St. Brown gets hurt. Like, all those situations are in play, but they have a really good pass rush. The cornerback play is improved, and then you have a really legitimate offense. So I'll still give it to Detroit, and then maybe like Minnesota and Green Bay, like fighting it out for the number 2 spot.
Love it. All right. Tell everyone where they can find you before I let this next guest on here. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
This was the best. No, I was so happy to be on. Yeah, you can find us over at KC Sports Network, at KC Sports Network on Twitter, Benny and the Bets. Got a brand new episode with the guy that created HBO's Winning Time, Jeff Pearlman, who wrote the book Showtime. That's coming out this week. Stephie, you're going to be on the show in a couple weeks as well. Pumped for that. So you can find us at KCSM Betting. Just search that on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. If you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, trying to do better on TikTok, I suppose.
It's not exactly easy.
No, especially when you're chasing around little kids.
All right. Well, I will talk to you soon. I'll be on there. Everyone follow him on Twitter if you have not already. I'll see you later. Enjoy your Friday. Good luck this year. And next up is my dear friend. This has been a long time coming, producer as well as on-air talent. I can say that now at FanDuel TV. From the Up and Adams show, Mr. Matt Hamilton. How's it going?
It's going really well. This is awesome. I'm glad I finally get to sit down with you. As you said, this has probably been years in the making.
It's been quite some time. We've tried to make it happen. Didn't always work out, but I'm glad that we were able to do this. And I could take advantage of the fact that you just finished like a piece of your training camp tour. You went to what? Commanders, Eagles, Bills, Jets.
Yep.
The Giants stood you up and said, you guys are actually not going to be coming. So we did plan on being able to talk about them a little bit more. I'm sure they'll come up later in the show. But you're going to Cincy Monday. Is that right?
Yes.
That's awesome. That'll be fun. Everyone loves Kay there, so it'll be a good time. But what stood out like from all of those? Like, is there a couple things that like really stood out to you while you were there?
Yeah, so it's been interesting because the vibe of every camp has been different. Like Jets camp, the excitement over Rodgers was wild. Even without, it was a closed practice, so there were no fans there, but still, just like you could feel it around that building. All the team employees are so excited to have him there. We got to talk to him for a little bit. He's having the time of his life.
Yeah.
And then Bills camp, you know, there's a focused energy there coming off of what they came off of last year. You know, just between the playoff game and everything else with DeMar Hamlin that they were dealing with, you know, there's still a little bit of a heaviness there. But everybody's, you know, I think they're excited to kind of wipe the slate clean and get off to a fresh start to the season. The Commanders, it was like a party. They're so happy to have a change in ownership.
Yeah, I can imagine. There's something there. Yeah, I can imagine.
So many of them were saying, like, we don't, you know, we already won this year with a change in ownership. And they're just so excited about the future. And so many fans, too, that hadn't been showing up to games, hadn't been going to camp because they were so disgusted with what was going on that have come back and it's their first time there in like 10, 15 years, which is incredible. And then Eagles camp was something because they're like under lock and key. Like they're not letting, I was really surprised they even let us get there. Like if you go on like their team social media accounts and stuff, like there's no footage of practice coming out. Nobody's really talking to the media. They're really keeping things under wraps. Like Sirianni, we know how intense he is. He's even more intense than ever, I think, right now. He says we talked to him too. He's saying he's watching the Super Bowl. He's watched the Super Bowl like 30 times this
offseason. Cannot be healthy. That cannot be healthy.
and he tried to downplay it too. He's like, yeah, I think the last time I watched it was a couple weeks ago. His like 8-year-old son's watching off on the side. He's like, no, it was yesterday.
It cannot be healthy to watch that game over and over again for him.
Yeah, I really don't think so. But I mean, it seems to be working for him. He's locked in, and Jalen. We didn't get to speak with Jalen, but saw him around the facility, and he's just like he's laser focused. He is all business right now. So it's going to be interesting. You wonder, like you like seeing that intensity, but you wonder if they're going to be a little tight. It's it's hard to keep that up, that type of intensity. You're starting that in August to keep that going all year without starting to feel a little bit tight.
And they did. I mean, their season last year, they were on such a run that they were on. It'll be interesting to see if they can like keep up with that. I want to stay in that division because I want to ask you a little bit about Sam Howell because I know you guys got to speak with him. He's a little bit polarizing, but not as much as I thought he would be. And I guess I have a little bit different of an opinion on the Commanders, but what do you think the actual expectation is for Sam?
It's hard. It's such a mystery, right? Because we just know so little. We got that one game sample size against the Cowboys, and you know, you love the mobility that he has. He's really a threat with his legs. And the thing that stood out to me that we heard from everybody talking to guys like Jahan Dotson and even Chase Young, the accuracy. They were all raving about his accuracy. But you see, you know, he's about 6'1". He's going to be facing some great defensive lines, some great fronts. You wonder how that's going to impact him. The Washington offensive line, is a little bit shaky right now. And I mean, that D line makes them look a lot shakier. They're not going to be facing a line like that every week, but you wonder how that's going to impact him as well. But it just seems like the whole team, the whole fan base has really rallied around him and embraced him, and they seem to love him. And you get a sense of, sitting down with him, like you could see he is very likable. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's saying the right things. He's approaching it the right way. But as we know, that can only take you so far. You got to get it done on the field. But I mean, he's set up for success. That receiving core that they have, that trio between McLaurin, Dotson, and Samuel is so freaking good. And I don't think they get enough credit because of how bad the quarterback play has been.
Right.
And of course, I think that defense is going to be a top 3 defense this year.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it too. And I think that's why, there is a lot of money coming in on the command. It's one of the most bet win totals right now is this over on this Commanders team. It's interesting though, because I think there's 2 ways that this could end up going. It's either going to be that, people were maybe a little bit too optimistic. Snyder's gone. You have that defense. And then maybe Sam Howell doesn't totally live up to it, which isn't actually as mean as this may sound. It's not really the end of the world because you didn't spend a lot of draft capital.
Yeah.
I really thought, what was that, like 3 years ago? I thought they were going to put themselves in a position to move up in that draft and go get their quarterback. They have had like their quarterback room, which is why I get very angry when Commanders fans come in and talk about Daniel Jones and stuff. I don't want to hear about it when we talk about your quarterback room. There's really no argument here. We're not going to compare them by any means. But I think there is maybe a world where if things aren't going that good, do they just say, okay, we do have new ownership now. Could we go and look to find our quarterback in the draft? I think they have enough respect for Ron to not fire him mid-season, but maybe they let him go at the end of the season. Like, I think that there is a path to that as well. I can see both things. Like, I can see them winning 7, 8, 9 games, but I also could see the path where, they lose a bunch in a row, and then you see them go down this path of like, maybe it's time to actually just like start fresh.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely the way I see it too. Because again, if Howell has it, I think the rest of that roster is so good.
Yeah,
they can make something happen. But that division is so tough too.
Yeah.
And you're right. Wiping the slate clean. I think if it doesn't go well this season, I do think it's the last year of Ron Rivera there.
Yeah.
And they start fresh with a new head coach quarterback combo and kind of build up from there. But yeah, it's going to be they're one of the most interesting teams to me this year for sure.
They are, definitely. I think they're extremely polarizing. I think people it seems like the general public, and I mean, the money shows it's coming in the way that it is. People are very high on them. I don't know that I disagree. I know people get mad when I talk about rivals and how I think that they have everything that they need to be a good football team. We'll stay in that division quick. I won't make this a whole NFC East show, but the Eagles, what is going on with their like running back room? Like, is it going to be this committee, like this running back by committee that we saw kind of that Super Bowl season of like 17 or whatever it was? Because I can't figure out, I guess this is more like a fantasy question. I don't know if any of them are really truly worth drafting right now, unless it's the later guys.
Yeah, I think we are going to see them all get burned. That tends to be their MO. But from what I'm hearing from, what Sirianni's had to say, what new offensive coordinator Brian Johnson's had to say, I think we're going to see DeAndre Swift utilized a lot in the passing game, which if you're in a PPR league, makes him really attractive. You look at him, he's interesting too, because he's been kind of disappointing for what the expectations were. A lot of that has to do with injuries, never played a full season. He's missed 10 games through his first 3 years. He's also only started 16 of the 40 games that he's played.
Right.
But he's top 5 in the league in catches over the last 3 years from the running back spot. And if the Eagles are going to open up their offense more, they only threw 61 passes to their running backs only caught 61 passes combined all of last year. And everything I'm hearing from that coaching staff, that's going to change this year. So I do think there's PPR upside there with Swift. And it's also, I mean, he's running behind that offensive line.
I know.
Right now it looks like he's going as like a running back 3 right now in a lot of drafts. I mean, I would take a swing on him in that range because I think the upside is tremendous. And even if they go by committee, I think you're getting solid value there.
I agree. And I won't lie. I also think I think there's a little bit more to that Detroit Swift relationship that we didn't get to see, because you kind of got a taste of it in Hard Knocks, where the way that they were like talking to him and like kind of talking down, it was just a weird relationship. So I wonder, and we've seen this before, like you see guys move to like a more positive culture, and whether that's, I'm not saying Detroit doesn't have a positive culture, but maybe for him it's a little bit better of a fit. I'm buying into it. And I think you touched on it. Like, he is a receiving threat just as much as he is a rushing threat. And I think, they'll use Penny as long as he's healthy. I don't label guys injury prone very often. It's very hard for me to not put that label on Penny. I love him. He's like a fantastic back, but I think he'll be like that goal line option, a lot of the short yards type thing. And then you have Gainwell, who will probably be more of like the third down back, which is exactly, again, like what we saw in 2017 with that running back room. But the Eagles are still going to be awesome. It's just, it'll be interesting to see how they spread this ball and if Swift can stay healthy.
Yeah, definitely. And there's some new pieces there too. They lost a bunch of starters from last season. So there's a lot of young guys filling in. It sounds like Cam Jurgens is kind of taking over that right guard spot that is vacated by Sayamalu. And then on defense too, they're replacing their linebackers. But they've, Howie Roseman's done a good job setting them up for this, drafting Nakobe Dean last year to slip right in and fill that TJ Edwards spot. He might end up being better. And then you got Jalen, they lose Javon Hargrave to the Niners in the offseason. They got Jalen Carter swooping.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying. As a Giants fan, it is so annoying. Like, I'm so sick of it and so sick of Howie Roseman getting his way. And I knew it was going to be the second that A.J. Brown trade went through. I was like, he's going to be a bigger issue than we realized. He's an issue. But let's get out of the NFC East. I don't want to talk about the Eagles anymore. Bills regression. A lot of people talking about that. That's something that the media is like laying on very heavy. You're either pro Bills, last opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, maybe a little bit of regression. That division very obviously got more difficult. You look at Tua. I still have concerns. We again don't wish an injury. What happens if Tua gets one concussion, gets a second? There's going to be a conversation we had there in Miami. Jets, obviously, you get Aaron Rodgers. I think that the Jets defense, which was great last year, I actually think they're going to take a bigger step forward this year. I think their defense is going to be a massive problem this year. Bills win total, I think, is at 10.5. Where are you at with the Bills right now?
It's tough with them because obviously, you laid it out perfectly. They still have a really good team, but the competition is much better than it's been. The Jets are going to be a real factor there. I think, especially when you look at, the defense carried them last year. People have questions about the offensive line because it wasn't good last year, but everybody was hurt. We're seeing some good things out of Becton so far. He's gotten himself in shape. Elijah Vera Tucker is one of the best guards in the league. He's back now. They missed him tremendously. And they have a ton of depth there now too. So, while that's the concern people have, with them protecting Rodgers, I think they're going to be fine. And as you said, I think that defense is going to be incredible. Again, they get Breece Hall back as well. I'm in. A lot of people are skeptical about the Jets. I think it's just because they're the Jets, but it's hard for me to poke holes in that team and what they have right now. But as far as the Bills, there are a couple factors here that I think it's all going to hinge on. One is going to be Josh Allen making better decisions with the football, because we saw him, the turnovers over the course of the second half of last year were an issue. And that offense got stale. We saw, it's funny, the beginning of the year, it was like, okay, they'll be okay with Ken Dorsey. They don't miss stable too much. And then as the year went on, Dorsey didn't really adjust when things started going poorly. And it really reared its head. And Josh this has been a running theme throughout his career. I think what's kept him, he's phenomenal. He's a great athlete. He's got a tremendous arm, as we know, but there's times when he forces things too much and he really has to learn. And I think you saw it last year without, I know they brought Cole Beasley back in later. He's not the same player that he was. But when Josh was at his best, it was when he had Cole underneath that he can, as kind of his security blanket. Maybe Dalton Kincaid becomes that for him this year. We'll see kind of how that develops, but he has to make better decisions. And I think it's also going to depend on if they're really, the AFC is so loaded. If they're going to have a chance in this, Von Miller has to be Von Miller, come back healthy and be the player that he was. and Tre'Davious White has to be Tre'Davious White. He came back midseason. He wasn't really the same guy.
Right.
I think when you see players come back midseason, that's kind of how it goes. They're just kind of a shell of themselves. And then the next year's when you see them get back to form, they desperately need that from him with the offenses they have to face. So if those things all come together, yeah, the Bills are a contender, but those are a lot of question marks. And the division is so good top to bottom.
Yeah, I won't even lie. I was so pissed off when the schedules came out and the Giants like totally got screwed with all those away games, which is very obviously because of the Aaron Rodgers effect.
Yep.
I actually think it does benefit the Giants because I think that they are, a second part of the season team. Like, I think that does benefit them in a way to have all those home games in a row. But I did bet on them to miss the playoffs. But, that's almost a donation at this point. I think that team stays healthy. Rodgers was obviously miserable. You talk about these guys that they go to a, more positive culture, even if the culture is not toxic there, it just wasn't working with that player. So I think he's in a good spot. They're in a good spot. It's annoying though. I don't need them going and winning too many games. Like they should keep MetLife. Giants can go on their way. But do you think the Jets end up winning that division?
I do. I honestly do. I'm in on them. I think the Dolphins are going to be tied. As you said, like the Tua thing is still concerning. Jalen Ramsey's injury.
Their O-line was not good.
Yeah.
That concerns me. I know that, I actually can't even think of what they did to improve it. I don't know that they made enough improvements for me to be too excited about it though, because I probably wouldn't be able to remember.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like the Dolphins, but I think right now the Jets have kind of everything going for them. And it's hard for me to poke holes. They may get off to a little bit of a slow start. Remember, we saw it kind of with the Bucs and Brady in that first year. It took them a little bit to find their footing. But the good news for them, they have all the tough games, or it's good and bad news. They have so many tough games out of the gate. So if they're not in stride yet, it could be a rough start to the season. But it's a really soft schedule after that. They're going to have time to find their footing, and they're going. If it doesn't unravel for them mentally after a little bit of a tough start, I think they're really going to get going in the second half of the season and by playoff time be a really tough team to deal with.
Yeah. As long as the Jets don't jet, they're probably going to be in a pretty good spot. But is there any teams that you think are going to surprise people next year?
Yeah, there's a couple teams that I've had my eye on. I think one is the Falcons. The jury is still out on Desmond Ridder for sure.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence, kind of.
I'm kind of in. The nice thing about all these teams that did, not to interrupt you, that did draft these guys, like a Sam Howell that year, all these guys fell that, you didn't risk a lot of draft capital to get them. If it doesn't work, oh, well, you move on the next year. So I think they're in a good spot with him where it's like, just let it rip, like see what happens, see what comes of it. I think they have a lot of weapons, but I'll let you finish on them. But I think people, are a little too low on just like give the kid a chance, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm interested to see what he can do. But that's the thing. I don't think they need him to be great to win, because when you look at how they're constructed and how Arthur Smith runs that offense, he can get by with mediocre quarterback play. We saw him do it in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, with what he built in that offense. And we saw him do it last year. This team was a contender. I know the division was a dumpster fire. It's probably going to be a dumpster fire again, though, and we saw him keep them competitive. And the biggest things to me, adding Bijan obviously is huge. With him and Pitts and Drake London, I mean, that's a phenomenal core of playmakers. The offensive line is pretty solid. Arthur Smith is super creative. You don't need the great quarterback play to get something out of that offense. And then the biggest thing, though, the defense, they added so many pieces to improve that defense.
So low on it, and I don't understand. Like that secondary, like they added Jesse Bates. They have one of the best. They have like some really stable pieces there. And I'm not sure why everyone is so low on it. I kind of get why, but I don't know that people are actually looking at what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they were atrocious last year on that side of the ball. I'm sure that plays a factor in it. But again, they made so many additions. Jesse Bates, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata. They really added a lot of depth. I know some of those guys are a little bit older. They're not quite the players they were, but they're still good. And they still make that defense a lot better. And they were in the bottom 10 of the league last year defensively. If they're even mediocre defensively, with what I think they're going to be able to do on offense, I could really see them winning that division. I know everybody's super high on the Saints, but you know, I'm not the biggest Derek Carr fan in the world. I'm not totally buying that. I think the Falcons are going to push them for that division title.
That's the thing too. I'm not sure where it comes from. Like, you look at this division and like Tampa Bay, and I'll just go into this, like, because I'm interested in your opinions. I am much lower, I think, than consensus on Tampa Bay than the general public. And I guess I don't even understand why I'm getting the pushback on them either, because you look at this team and you're telling me that it's a competition between Trask and Baker. Okay. Trask is completely unproven, like completely. I mean, kind of just because you know, we saw him in college and what he was and what he's capable of. We've seen Baker time and time again. He's, you know, he gets any type of pressure and he panics. And you know what you did is you moved on from some of these guys, you know, Donovan Smith, all these guys that went over to other teams. That O-line looks a lot different. You do have Wirfs, who I think he will play better moved over. I think that we're going to see that be a really nice spot for him. But and there's a lot of talent there. So you look at the depth chart, you look at it, it's very pretty until you move past like that first. Then there's issues. They get a couple scattered injuries. They lose a couple games. And then if I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm looking forward to the draft at that point. Why go on to keep pushing? I don't know. I can't see where everyone is getting this like 7, 8, 9 game season out of them.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there. I think the offensive line was awful last year as it was. I don't think they really got better. I am a fan of Wirfs, but other than that, it's really questionable. And we know Baker, when you look at Baker, when he's been successful, it's when he's had a good offensive line, a good run game, and he can run the offense off play action. That's not the strength of this team.
No.
And as far as Trask, I'm not the biggest Trask fan either. When you know, again, we'll see how he develops. I never want to write guys off too early. But when you look at what he did at Florida, he had Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney, who were just mismatches to everybody that they played. Right. And Brian Johnson, the new Eagles offensive coordinator, was his offensive coordinator and did an incredible job scheming things up for those guys. And he had a lot of easy decisions, a lot of open receivers to throw to, and he put up big numbers, but a lot of that was the product of what was around him. So we'll see how he develops, but I'm not super high on either of those guys right now. And as you said, there's a lot of flashy players, but the core, you and I always talk about, if you're not good up front, you know, it's hard to win in this league. That's all that matters.
Yeah. And so one of the guys that I like too is Shaq Mason. And we can talk about the team that he went to in Texans, but like, I think that they lost guys that were more pivotal than people realize. You also have an older team. So I actually see this playing out where these vets might start getting really frustrated. They start losing games. They went from a Tom Brady, this team, you know, actually the line opened. You could get under 6.5 at +110, which was probably Brady insurance. He was not coming back, but you know, the books have to be a little bit safe sometimes. You know, they didn't invest really. Like, Baker is not a solution. I think that people are convincing themselves that this is a Band-Aid. Like, and they very much didn't go out and try to actually make a splash, because they're probably going to be in a position to, like, you know, you go to the draft, you know, there's no reason to go and like get a guy. But where are you at with the Texans?
That's funny, because when you asked about the teams that I think could overachieve a little bit, the Texans were going to be my other one. And it's funny because they didn't make a lot of splashy moves in free agency, but they added so many pieces, so many guys that are going to be in that rotation that are going to make them a lot better. You mentioned Shaq Mason. They get Robert Woods. They're getting John Mechie back as well, which I think is going to be significant. Yeah. They go get Dalton Schultz. They had guys like Sheldon Rankins up front, Jimmy Ward in the secondary. You know, these aren't the sexiest names, but these are guys that are going to make them so much more well-rounded as a team. And obviously, a lot of it's going to depend on what CJ Stroud can do. But I think I think we can all agree the weakest division in the AFC is probably going to be at South. I expect the Jaguars to win it. Other than that, you know, it's kind of up in the air. The Texans have a weak schedule, and they were playing teams tough at the end of last year. I think DeMeco Ryans.
They were feisty.
they almost they took the Chiefs to OT. They really played well down the stretch. I think D'Amico Ryans has them fired up too. It seems like all those players are totally bought in. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see this team, hovering around 500 for a lot of the season. And I don't know if it's, I don't know if I could say playoffs in year one, but I think by year two, I think by next year, this is a team we're going to be talking about as a potential playoff team.
Yeah, they won 3 games last year. I think they tied one with that ridiculous game. That was absurd, but like over 5.5, I even would probably push it to, there is a little bit of value, I think, on that over 6.5 you can get for plus money. I think FanDuel actually has it. Shout out to your employer. Look at me plugging the employer.
There we go.
The Texans, what they did was, and I like to look for this too, where what teams make moves that are like, oh, that's not just a move for the future. That's like, we want to win right now. And it feels like the Texans kind of did that. Like they made these moves that are like, it's going to make them better tomorrow. So I think that they're interested in like being a little bit more competitive. We saw them be competitive. They were great against the spread team like all season. And I think people are overlooking them. Do I think that they're going to be phenomenal? No, I don't. But I think they're going to piss people off all year long. I think they're going to be feisty. I think they're going to be like, I think at some point, like we're going to be like, oh my God, the Texans are good. Like what is going on? I like Ryans a lot. Even if he were to sneak something out, his coach of the year value is pretty high. Like if they ended up having some type of trajectory like the Giants did last year, like I think people are going to look at the Texans. I don't want to hype them up too much. I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to the playoffs, but I think that they're a team that is going to piss people off.
No, I'm with you. And speaking of pissing people off, I have to mention I did a little something for you here today.
Oh, I love it. Let's go. Oh, no, we have one rule. You had one rule. I'm not gonna lie though, you know what's funny, and I shouldn't do like free advertising, but I do have black socks on too. And I did break my own rule today when I went to the store. I was still wearing my gym shoes that are white. But yeah, that's a no. I did it as well today, though. That's so embarrassing. Shit, I broke my own rule. Oh my God. You do that all the time?
No, I did it. I literally did this just because I knew it would piss you off.
You think you know someone, and then you look at them and they're wearing black socks and white shoes. It's so bad. Oh my God. You know who probably doesn't do this though is Mike Tomlin. And I think another team people are low on is the Steelers. Where are you at with the Steelers?
Yeah,
transition I could come up with from going from feet and socks to Mike Tomlin. So Mike Tomlin, I apologize. That is the best I could do to get your name on.
I'm sorry. I totally derailed the show. My bad.
I love it. No, I love it.
But yeah, no one's talking about the Steelers right now. You're right. And when you really look at what they've done, strengthening the offensive line, I think was the biggest thing. The number one thing they've needed to do for years. They haven't really been able to do it. Because they really haven't had much flexibility financially, but they finally did it this offseason. I think Najee was battling through that foot injury all year. He wasn't the same player. I think we'll see him back healthy.
Yeah.
We know the defense is going to be really good. It's just, that division is loaded. Everybody's tough. But if Pickett's able to take another step forward this year, I mean, find a hole in that roster other than the uncertainty at quarterback.
Exactly, 100%. And I think that people are too low on them. I see everyone, one of my favorite bets this year is that over 8.5. I mean, they won 9 last year with all those injuries, with uncertainty at quarterback. And then you saw too, like even TJ Watt, when he was healthy last year, they went 8-2. Like he is a guy. There's not, I wouldn't say there's that many in the NFL, but he's someone when he's on the field, like he is a true, like he changes the outlook of like an entire game. And Kenny didn't look horrible at the end. I won't lie. Like I wasn't a huge Kenny person. When I went to the Senior Bowl, I thought he was the only one that looked like he should maybe go in the first round. I've been pretty low on him, but I think he, he's also like has a pretty good deep ball. And I think you start utilizing some of those weapons over there. You improve the O-line. Apparently, who is it? Broderick. Is that who they drafted? Yeah. He looked really good in camp. I think they made upgrades across the board, and you just get TJ back. And this team, it's Mike Tomlin. Like this is Mike Tomlin you're talking about. And if I'm going to bet against a team, I promise you it's not going to be a team that Mike Tomlin is coaching.
Yeah, I mean, he's never had a losing record. It's the most, I think it's the most remarkable stat in the NFL right now in all
And
his
he never
seasons.
won Coach of the Year.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
so crazy. How is that
It's
possible?
it's absolutely nuts. I think, I yeah, probably the biggest thing that took away from him was that that people look at it as he inherited Bill Cowher's team,
Sure.
but come on, I mean, we're so far removed from Bill Cowher right now, and he's still doing it. That's a bullshit.
It's
If I could say, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say
Oh,
that
I was
here,
gonna
but
I was gonna drop an F-bomb, but here I am being all professional. This is, we can say whatever you want here. But
okay, good.
what I was gonna say was it's Mike fucking Tomlin. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Like he's not going. I don't foresee them losing. Like I see them winning at least 9 games, and maybe they sneak out some more. They have a pretty favorable
yeah,
schedule too. Like it depends on what type of metrics you use. It's either the 8th easiest, 5th easiest. The analytic nerds will, they go back and forth with what they feel. I lean more towards the 5th easiest. They've got a couple games that are just an absolute joke. We know how hard this division is. They're going to go head to head every game. It wouldn't surprise me if they all split between all of them.
yeah.
It's something that we see all the time. Do you think that where are you at with who wins that division?
I do think it's going to be the Bengals.
Yeah.
But the Ravens, I mean, it's always just about health with the Ravens. And it's one of those things, again, I hate saying people are injury prone, but they have a lot of guys that tend to suffer a lot of injuries regularly on that team. If they stay healthy, I hate being this person, but if they stay healthy, I mean, that team is loaded. If they're healthy for the majority of it's no doubt a playoff team to me. If they stay healthy for the entire season, all those key players stay healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak out a division title. But it's a real concern. It's been, when you have this pattern over the course of 3-4 years, you can't just ignore it. That's my only hesitation with Baltimore. Cleveland, I don't even want to talk about Cleveland.
Yeah, right. We don't.
Yeah,
this isn't a pro Cleveland pod, so it's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, and then Pittsburgh. But yeah, so I still think it's going to be Cincinnati. I think they've been upgrading this team. You worry about the state losing both starting safeties is concerning. But it sounds like Burrow's going to be fine. He'll be back for week 1, and that offensive line has gotten better and better every year. I still think they're the team to beat there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I don't think that you can even really argue it. I'll ask you about another team. I'll probably ask you about 2 more teams and I'll let you get out of here. But what about the Minnesota Vikings? Because another team, I think people are writing them off a little bit too soon, especially in that division. Listen, I know that their defense sucked. Like I watched it. I'm very aware. Yeah. I watched the Giants go in. I was at that game. I know how bad it was. But I think there's something to Flores coming in, and like a lot of the guys on defense, they also are really young, and they're guys that we didn't see last year. You have Lewis Cine, you have Andrew Booth, you have these guys that Flores kind of gets to make their own. Like might get a little blitz. I don't know. I think they might be in a good spot, kind of. They're gonna not be great, but their offense can put up points.
Yeah, it's true. And Addison is going to make that offense even better. I'm excited for him this year. Playing opposite Justin Jefferson is just going to get him so many favorable matchups and one-on-one matchups. But overall, yeah, I'm not super high on the Vikings. I think, it's been Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, it's been an interesting approach. It's an approach that I don't want to judge it too soon because we got to see what the 5-year plan is here. Right. He's clearly making moves here for the long term. Right. They're in this but I don't usually love teams that are kind of half in, half out. And I feel like that's where the Vikings are right now. They're kind of half rebuilding, half going.
They know Kirk is going to be out. They know they have to pay Justin, but then they also let go really crucial pieces of a lot of their team on both sides, not both sides of the ball, more the defense, but even one of the weirdest moves I thought was Duke Shelley, for example. Yeah. It's huge for them. You could have got him for cheap. He signed what? I think he went to maybe the Raiders or something. I don't know where he went, but his contract was nothing. Why did you not? Yeah. A guy like that is just some of the moves. I'm like, what is going on here? Some of the trades and the drafts, some things are a little off. Yeah.
Yeah, all the interdivision trades that they've made. They gave the Packers Christian Watson. They
Right?
gave the Lions
What's
Jamison
going on?
Williams.
Yeah.
Like, it's so strange. But yeah, I think a lot of their season this year is just going to depend on what the rest of the division, because that whole division is such a question mark.
No,
I think the Lions are going to be really good.
People are all in on Jordan Love too. It's a little
Yeah.
soon, I think, to be all in on Jordan Love. Like, I know that that's been historically the way that, the Packers have gone. They've gotten very fortunate. They're very lucky that it played out that way. But I don't know. I think that it's going to be a little bit interesting. I think the Lions right now probably, the odds are set correctly, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm in on the Lions. I love what they've done. I love how they built this thing. And I think Jared Goff is better than he gets credit for.
1,000%. 1,000%. I also feel that way about Kirk. Like, I am such a big, I root for the guys that everyone decides that they hate. Jared Goff went to a fucking Super Bowl. Like, everyone knocking off. Like, and he has been routinely good. That trade might end up looking, I know the Rams got the Super Bowl, which is, it was worth it. But I don't think that trade wasn't worth it for the Lions. I think they put themselves in such a beautiful spot. You look at what they were able to do in the draft. I've got neighbors that already painted their mailboxes. It's very funny being in Michigan while this is happening. I moved here as they started getting better. And it's funny to watch people they have Super Bowl champs written. I don't know that they're going that far, but I'm here for it. I think that they're going to be a really fun division to watch 100%. Before I let you get out of here, because I've stolen a lot of your time, what's up with the Giants wide receiver room? I want your opinion, because I almost texted you the other day to ask you about it and ask you about Hyatt and stuff. But I was like, I'm just going to wait until he comes on the show.
I mean, it's hard. I know you're trying your best not to get overly excited about Jalen.
I'm trying so hard. It's so hard.
And you're not doing a great job at it? I mean,
no, I'm doing it
every time he does that.
I bet him to win Rookie Offensive Player of the Year yesterday. I'm not doing good. I'm not okay.
But I think the Giants receiver room is going to be totally fine. Adding a Jalen Hyatt in there is such a game changer, because they didn't have that guy that could take the top off the defense last year. And with the way that offense is structured, it runs through Saquon. Everyone knows it runs through Saquon. But when you have that type of speed, it makes you second guess yourself as a defense, because at any given time, he can make a game-breaking play on you. And adding Waller into that mix, he's a guy that could be a primary target for any offense. He's really like a number one receiver at tight end when he's healthy. And they just have so much depth across the board. Yes, they don't have that guy that's the superstar number one wide receiver right now, but they have 8 guys they can throw at you that can make plays.
Yeah, 100%. I think the speed is one thing. You have Darren Waller. I think that somewhere too that, Daniel Jones excels a lot, in the red zone, getting the touchdowns. Once you're down the field, Daniel Jones is one of the best red zone quarterbacks actually in the league, which people would not believe me, but it's true. And another area where Waller exceeds too, I think that connection down there is going to be great. Then you have these fast guys. You had a Paris Campbell. You get Wandell back. I think they're in a good spot as far as weapons goes. Daniel, besides for Saquon, the best weapon he's thrown to, people don't realize this when they want to talk about Daniel Jones, is he threw to fucking Golden Tate, and not Golden Tate prime Golden Tate. That is the best weapon that he has ever thrown the ball to, excluding a Saquon. I'm higher on Shep than most people, so I there's probably an argument there to be made, but I think the wide receiver room is going to be okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, all those guys that you mentioned are capable of making play. Hodgins really came along last year. I don't think it was just a 1-year thing, just this magical run that he had. I think he's a legitimately good player. And you're right. I mean, Daniel Jones has never really had help other than Saquon. So I'm excited to see him with a diverse group of playmakers like this, because I think there's still so much more to his game. And that's the thing. The people that want to knock the contract that he got, first of all, you look at where it sits now after all these other people have gotten paid. It's not bad. No. And they're betting on his future. They're not paying him for what he's done. They're paying him for what they think he's going to do. And there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about what he's capable of based on what we saw last year without a ton of talent to throw to.
Yeah, I actually think there's so much audacity in getting mad about Daniel Jones's contract after seeing the horrible QB play that we saw. That is such an important position. I also am all for backup quarterbacks making a little bit more money, because it's a position you genuinely need. Even if it's just 3 games, we've seen the difference in, look at what the Giants had. Look I didn't forget, they had Glennon and Fromm. Like, those games were so unbearable to watch. It's such an important position. But before this turned into a Giants like rant, I'll let you go. I'll have to get you back on maybe like in a couple weeks so we can talk maybe before the season truly starts. If you guys do not follow Matt, go on Twitter at Matt Hamilton 25, unless I'm wrong. Am I right?
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Yes, I'll let you get out of here. Happy Friday. I'll probably text you in a little bit, but thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This was awesome. Sorry about the socks. And have a great weekend.
I won't forgive you. Okay. Bye. Producer Ryan's gonna come on here. What's up?
Hey.
How's it going?
Why does your camera always get blurry when I come on? It's like I make your camera drunk for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like last time I raised my arms, I don't know. But I'm wearing a gray shirt, and in case I have pit stains, I don't know. It won't come down. Okay, it'll fix in a second.
No worries. Okay, we have some questions for you.
All right,
but
let them rip.
Before I get to those, I wanted to quickly. So I'm wearing my shirt. What do you think about the ASU Arizona? Are they going to the Big 12? Are you supporting this?
Arizona is gone.
Well, they haven't confirmed it 100% yet.
I thought they did right before I jumped on.
I was seeing that it is rumored that they are, and
because Arizona has been admitted to Big 12.
Oh, I missed that.
I know. Maybe I'm the only one that got the notification.
I just saw the Arizona deal expected to finalize soon, but they must have just put it out before we jumped on.
About it. This also means now I get to see like some conference games in freaking Cincy, and that's where I live by, and it'll be good. The Pac-12 is a dump. I'm over it.
The Pac-12 has been a dump for a while now. I'm also, I'm so old that I went to ASU when it was the Pac-10.
Oh wow!
Wow. So
I
want ASU to jump too.
Yeah. I'm ready.
I want ASU. I'm ready. Okay. We got some listener questions. First up, who do you have? This is Cody Marmon threw this out there. I haven't heard you say yet. Who is your bet for MVP? What bet do you like? Where are you going with that?
It depends with the script. I wonder where the script writers are going to go. I am going to double down on my MVP bet. It'll be the last time that I do this, but I'm going to run it back with Lamar Jackson again. I think that the Ravens were set up for success last year. Now they have so much talent. I think that team ends up surprising people. Obviously, you can bring up injury, get a little bit nervous about Lamar and him staying on the field, but if he's able to actually play a full season, like people forget he's not that far removed from an MVP season. We see that guys that have had an MVP before, they're more likely to repeat that too. There's plenty of stats that you can pull up to provide that information for you. But I like Lamar Jackson to run it back.
Yeah, I'm seeing him right now, 14-1, 16-1. Yeah. Where did you get it at? Or have you bet it yet?
I have not bet it yet. I probably should go and do that. I should have done it probably before all these moves that they made, but I think it's about the same as it was last year. So I don't know if the market has moved too much on it, but yeah, I like Lamar Jackson. I think that's a fun bet. It's very easy to go and bet the Josh Allen, bet the Patrick Mahomes, whatever. You can go that route, but Joe Burrow is interesting. I'm not quite there though yet with Cincy, I guess.
Okay. Gavin Graber says Richie James is going to be a PPR monster. Do you agree, disagree?
Monster is like one way to describe it. I think he's going to be a pest. He was like that with the Giants, but he's like a really sneaky weapon. And I actually think him going to the Chiefs is a beautiful placement for him. I think they're going to use him more than people want.
All right. That's a good way to put it. All right. And I think that's all we have for questions that I was able to grab. Thanks all for being here. And please make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the podcast platforms as well.
All the platforms. Hit subscribe, comment on this video who you think is going to be MVP. And we'll see you guys maybe Sunday. We might be working some things out. Stay tuned, but we'll definitely see you soon.